Good afternoon. I come from a very different sort of industry, or I could say, more of the private side. But I'm going to touch upon a project which is on the public-private partnership, which was done in Gujarat, and that is for one of the most important skills today for getting employed. Today in our country we have a lot of people who need to be employed. There are a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a gap in between. And one of these employability skills that we require is English as a language. So I'm going to touch upon that product because our company, I come from Wordsworth, we're into content development. So I'll first take up actually what the entire project was, what happened, and how content changed the entire scenario. You must be aware that Gujarat is quite a progressive state today in our country. And in the last 5-6 years, the government has been able to mobilize close to 14 lakh crores of rupees as investment. Now, there were a lot of companies which came down to Gujarat, they set their shop and factories. But they had one major issue, is that they didn't have the right kind of people with the right kind of communication skills. Because suddenly companies from across the world came in, companies from across the country came in. And the major issue that they had was communication skills. So our Honorable Chief Minister, Mr. Modi, what he did, he said, okay, let me launch a program. And that program was known as SCOPE, which is Society for Creation of Opportunities through Proficiency in English. And the mandate of this program was to train 1 lakh people in English skills every year. And this they wanted to do through a public-private partnership. So like earlier it was said, government has to take part, but that part has to be an enabler and to be a monitoring agency. Like in the US, they don't do anything. They see that the people are doing it properly or not and have the right kind of mandates done. So the government came in that way. And then they called in companies like ours and they said, okay, here's an opportunity. We want you to train 100,000 people every year and we're going to give you the infrastructure. That means they picked up schools and gave us one from a school or a college. They said, we'll give you some tools also, like they gave us a projector and a computer. They said, go ahead, teach. The third thing that they did was, because they wanted this program to be really good, they did not make it free. The government could have done that. They said, okay, we'll subsidize the program. Each individual who is going to come in for a course or needs to be trained, he should have that requirement and he should take it seriously. So they said, okay, X price. They priced an English language course at 1,200 rupees, which normally is around 4,000, 5,000. And what they did was they built in a certification program. The government was the enabler. Companies like ours were delivering the course. There was a third company. They got a University of Cambridge to come and do the certification. That means if a student is being trained, if I am training him, there's a third party certification happening. So all the things were taken care of, and this entire program, they subsidized the exam fees. The exam which cost close to 1,600 rupees today, they got it to 250 rupees, and that too, 150 rupees was paid by the government, 100 rupees were paid by the student out of this 1,200 rupees. So this was a project that they came in for, and they said within 3 months, you have the entire project rolling. So within 3 months, we were supposed to get 1,000 centers in Gujarat. And there had to be a ratio, if you have X number of centers in urban Gujarat, you have to have Y in rural Gujarat. Okay, so the entire thing happened and we started the program. A very successful program, but there were a lot of hiccups. I'm especially talking about these hiccups and how they were taken care of, and that too through public-private partnership and talking about using technology and using content to take the program forward. So what happened was, the students were ready, the government was charged up, we were charged up. But we had a major issue. Like it was pointed out earlier, what about trainers? The good trainers were not ready to go to the rural pay. Okay, since it was a government project, subsidized, the fees charge was low, the private entrepreneur was not getting enough money to get a trainer would charge 25 to 30,000 rupees. So there was a major issue. Programs were good in the urban part, urban cities, rural, the programs were not that good. So there was major issue which came in. So at this point what was done, there were 2 things taken up. First, training of trainers was taken up. Now sir, like you said, you cannot manufacture trainers, you can manufacture facilitators. So that is where the role of companies like us, we are into content development. So what we did was, we developed localized content. See, there was, initially we used content from UK, You heard of Cengage Learning. We used their content. That content was good enough, but all the, you could say the entire content was British accent or the American accent. The names were not so common to our country, and the vocabulary was not to the Indian context. So what we did was, we created a new content, and that content was made so simple that a normal teacher or a facilitator, somebody who could read English, speak a little bit of English, could use that content and deliver training. So the most important part today, if you're talking about skill development, yes, we need the right kind of trainers. Yes, those trainers are not available. Yes, we can manufacture facilitators. So in between them, to make a facilitator a good delivery person, content is very important. And that is what was taken up. We spent around 6 months in developing a content which again was bilingual. You see, teaching language should be taught in the same language, you know. You put in two persons, we say, we go to China. Okay, you put me with a Chinese person in a room, 3 days down the line, he'll speak English, I'll speak a little bit of Chinese, because we need to survive. But that doesn't happen here because they have a choice of doing something else. So what we did was, we came up with bilingual content, where the explanation was done in Gujarati, which is the local language, but the exercises were in English. So this is how that entire content was created, and today close to 40,000 students, instead of doing that 100,000 students, we have been able to do 40,000 students every year, which again is quite remarkable, because I think this is the largest English language training program outside of China in the world, which has been taken up with the government of Gujarat. In fact, last month they celebrated the 100,000 students that were trained, and not only that, these students have appeared for certification, which is conducted by University of Cambridge, and these certificates are valid across the world. In fact, we get calls from the visa office that, you know, we have this certificate in which Gujarat is also written. Is it a proper certificate? Because it's a co-branded certificate. So what I'm trying to put up here is that yes, for skill development, okay, one very important skill that is required is English. You don't require trainers, you don't have to manufacture them, but yes, you can do with a lot of content, a lot of delivery mechanism, which a mid-level teacher or a teacher who is not so good can deliver. So the entire point comes down to this, that if we need to take the skill development mission, you know, we need to go further down. If we need to develop more kinds of skills, we need to develop content. Because we have so many people, like you're saying, 150 million people to be trained. 500, you said, talked about X number of teachers required. Now if we start training the trainers, bringing them to that level, I think we will go past the deadline. So what we need to do now is create the right kind of program, facilitated the right kind of content, and delivered by these facilitators. So that is what has been done. Today, after Gujarat, the same program has been copied by, or the government of Rajasthan is doing it, and we've also bagged the order from the government of Madhya Pradesh to do the same thing. So what we're doing now is that since teachers were not available, we had issues with facilitators also. So recently what we have done is we've launched a self-learning portal or a self-learning content which can be both offline and online, where these government projects, they use this content for a one-to-one self-learning. What they're doing is they're using all the IT training centers, or they're using all these community service centers, CVCs, that they're putting up. These centers, people go down, they take up the courses and, you know, learn on their own. And the person who mans that center is facilitating technically about the thing. And at the end, these certifying bodies like Cambridge, or now Pearson has also stepped in, they are taking up these things. So to conclude, what I would like to talk about is that for all skills, you know, if we add up English as a skill, which is important today, because if you look at our country, you know, we have diverse languages, and if I have to come down to South, and if I am not good at English, I have an issue. And the same is the case for a person who comes down from South and goes to the North or comes to the West, they have an issue. English is a leveler, you know, it brings everybody together. So if we put in English as one of the required skills, whatever level they can do, because, you know, there are 6 levels as per international standards. Even if a person goes to a second level, which is A2, where he can understand what he's been asked to do and can participate in a discussion, that would be good enough. These programs can be brought in, and to deliver the right kind of content would be taken. Thank you.